Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I'm very excited to have fellow Wolfpack here. I love when I have fellow Wolfpack here with me.
So fun.
I have Samantha Lenger here with me, and she's a content marketer for consumer software startups, service-based businesses. She's a TikTok content creator. She was recently on CNBC for an article that I absolutely loved because I was coming into a new job as well and negotiating. And so I am thrilled to have her and her marketing mind here with me. And I'm going to turn it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Hi guys. Yes, go pack first and foremost, always.
Yes.
I full-time run Saturday Media. It's a marketing studio focused on organic content. So we do everything social media, but then also some email and SMS. We're focused on service-based businesses. So people who run businesses who are focused on, it could be anything from therapy to they run startup accelerators is one of my clients. Nail salons to startups, which is a very wide range,
Yeah.
but we found some commonalities between them. So I've started in marketing in 2017 and went into product management for a little bit, but kept freelancing on the side in marketing. And there's something about if you keep doing something, even when it's not your full-time job, and even when you're not even paid to do it sometimes, there's something about that is a sign that draws you back. So went back into marketing last year, got to lead a whole marketing team at a startup, and have been creating content for about 2 years now on TikTok, and then went full time with sort of both of those. So the marketing studio and then content creation at the very beginning of this year.
I tell everybody all the time, I absolutely, it was my favorite thing in the world to go to state because what I love that state does in your 300 and 400 level classes is you get that actual business practice. Like you're actually working with businesses. And it was by far the coolest, but also the best experience that I could have ever gotten before, you go out into the real world and you are full on grown up status, essentially.
Yeah, I did the entrepreneurship program at NC State. So they had a practicum where I got to work with a couple different businesses, startups, both startups and like the innovation division of PVH, which owns Calvin Klein and Michael Kors. So those are the projects I was on, and we got to do everything from a little bit of like product innovation and strategy to marketing, and seeing like in those small environments how those pieces fit together, because it's a lot different at a startup when there's one product person, one marketing person, one sales, maybe,
Yeah.
at a larger company. So it was amazing experience.
I absolutely love it and I rave about it to everybody. I talk to them like state, go to state if you ever can. I'm like, it's the best place in the world. I want to hop into Saturday Media and dig more into how you work with these startups and all these different businesses. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm super focused on community-centered marketing. So it's all organic, it's all connecting with your ideal users, which I guess is all of social. But we focus a lot for these tech startups on the problems, like the whole reason you started the company and like this is needed in the first place. Because a lot of them, when they're just starting out, they're posting on social media and they're talking a lot about, like, I think the go-to thing is to talk about the product and talk about the features, and those are important things. But we find ways to actually build a community around the problem and the users. So whoever your users are, what problems are they facing, what challenges, how can you actually add value, drive value, and support them? And so we create content that does all of those things, which helps, I think, really catalyze the whole funnel of user to advocate in
Yeah.
marketing. So we're able to do that a lot faster, I think, in organic marketing if you do it right. And I think it scales really well with the brand, and is a big asset, right? Like if you have a community of people who are excited about every launch, who are giving you product feedback, which is extremely important at startups. And I think my product experience there has really helped with being able to communicate the feedback you're getting from marketing and creating content that'll actually give you the right feedback for further updates and launches. So
I love when you create a community that speaks for you. And I think that is incredibly powerful. I think that means that you're doing something right. You know what I mean? Like that just means you are on the right path, you are working in the right ways. those things are incredibly important to build. And I think it's oftentimes like it's preached in businesses, but it's not done 100% of the time.
It can be hard to do too, right? Because a lot of times in marketing, you have people who are giving you goals and KPIs that may be in direct opposition with building a real community. So it's up to the marketing person there or the agency to communicate that to the executives or to the stakeholders. And that can be really tough, especially I think it was really tough in like the old Instagram days before things like TikTok and some new platforms that have arose. So I think that it can be a hard thing to communicate the value of marketing and especially long-term plays to people who are just focused on sales. And not to say you shouldn't be focused on sales, right? Like I think marketing sometimes gets a bad rap for not actually driving sales, but I think you can do both, just maybe not at the same time.
Yep.
You just have to be really strategic about it.
I want to get to you've worked in-house and now you're doing stuff out of house. What is it about being out of the house side that you like so much?
Um, Getting to work on different projects, 100%.
Yeah.
So like when you're in-house, and I guess this is your question and more, you're a part of a big team and you're so focused on one brand. And I think that has a lot of positives, but
Yep.
I am like this semi ADHD, like multifaceted person who like, get so excited about different kinds of businesses and the freedom to like talk to a new business owner. And I used to do this just all the time, coffee chats for fun. And now I can work with them and I have the freedom to be like, oh, like, okay, let's have this kind of engagement.
Yeah.
And I have the flexibility of I do like advisory consulting and then also done for you media. So I'm able to work with founders at different levels and be a part of a bunch of different businesses, which is really exciting to me and is a lot more fulfilling to my creative
Yeah.
needs. Yeah.
I love getting to do freelance stuff too because you get a different perspective from each client that you work with. Even having, like you were talking about, like these types of conversations, I'll get a perspective from you, I'll get a perspective from somebody else. It's incredibly valuable just to be able to have those perspectives and insights and whatever it may be. I think you learn so much.
Yeah, I think that also when you're in-house, you maintain this sort of jack of all trades because you have so much scope on your plate, which I enjoy to an extent. But when you're by yourself or you're freelancing,
Yeah.
you can sort of like pick and choose. Like if I didn't want to do email, I didn't have to. Or like if I want to just create short form content, like I can do that.
Yeah.
It comes with its own challenges, right? The more niche you get, the harder it can be to find clients, but then you find the right clients. And there's all these pros and cons, but it's really up to you to decide that. It's up to you, like when you want to hold meetings. So like generally all of my meetings are at the beginning of the week because I realize that that's when I have the most energy to do all of that and get all this work done. Versus later in the week, I want to work on more creative projects, and the freedom to sort of set that schedule is such a privilege and has allowed me to, I think, fully thrive and use like my energy better.
Yeah. Now you've done digital marketing, you've done social media marketing, you've kind of done all of these different creative marketing outlets. Where does your passion lie for marketing and like in these creative outlets? Like where does your passion come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of the reason I sort of left marketing as a career to go into product management full time for a little bit was because Instagram felt too overly curated and aesthetic to me. It felt like it had a high barrier to play. It wasn't authentic. It, in that sense, also was like a pay to play game, and was just rewarding in my like eyes the wrong things. So TikTok really drew me back of being something that was more authentic.
Yes.
It prioritized like personality and genuine connection. It prioritized driving actual value, right? Above these things. So that's what drew me back initially and really where the platform that I'm most passionate about still.
Yeah.
Because I think that video creates such a big connection with audiences. And that exists on Instagram too now with Reels, we can see that. But I think that the audience on Instagram is still used to this slightly like over curated feed. With TikTok, like it's weird to say you can just be yourself and it's like a brand, but you get to develop like this personality behind the brand and actually connect with the audience in such a different way. So that's something I'm incredibly passionate about. Not to say that I don't enjoy like writing subject lines to emails, like that's honestly so fun to me.
Yeah.
I think all of organic, paid has its pros and it has its space. And I think ideally your business does some of both, right? But I've always really enjoyed organic. Like I've always enjoyed the creating creative that performs and connects with people and trying to prioritize them saving it and sharing it versus like necessarily an ad that drives clicks or drives buys. Again, marketing should result in sales.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're running ads, it's a little different.
Paid is interesting. Paid, you kind of, as much as it's running on its own, you're almost paying more attention to paid sometimes than you are organic. And organic's like the stuff you're posting. Paid you pay attention to because you're like, there's a dollar value and there's percentages, and you're kind of like, it's almost like a math equation where you're trying to figure out all of these different things. Is this working? Is it not? Who is responding? It's so interesting to me.
It's funny to me when you see the memes that are like the creative marketing girlies versus the technical marketing girlies. It's all like the organic versus
Yeah.
the like,
Yes.
technical.
Yeah.
I like math. I just, yeah, I've done paid. And when needed, like I will do it with creative. It's just not what I'm passionate about. Like I just want to connect with people.
I love the community aspect, and to your point about video, it's the thing that I preach the most and I ask the most. Like my video guy at the company I work for, him and I are super close now because I'm like, can I get more video assets? I'm like, what can we do to get some more video that I can get out onto social? Because it's just an easy form of content. It's something that, I mean, it's part of everything that we are all looking at 24/7.
Getting video content from clients can be a challenge because they're not necessarily used to it. And I haven't found like a precise way to, the best way to like ask for every different kind of shot I need,
Yeah.
you know? Like I'm
Yeah.
not, I actually was a videographer for like a small stay in college, but not like super professionally where I can tell you exactly like
Yeah.
what I need. That's like probably one of my biggest challenges, honestly, right now is like, how do I describe to all these different people? And some of them, I mean, my clients vary in like age and skill level and comfortability on social media. It's like, how do I coach them into giving me what I need that I know will perform?
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
Not all of my clients are local too. So it's not like I could just go shoot it for them.
I want to hop to this CNBC article and first want to set the stage. Three grads in total, including yourself, on the importance of negotiating salary right out of college. You had two offers starting in the beginning of your senior year. I just want to dive into why is it important to negotiate your salary? Like, what is the importance behind it first?
Yeah. You should always get paid what you're worth, right? I think there's just a first and foremost, like there's no one, the only person benefiting is like a huge corporation that like probably has stock on the NASDAQ. Like they don't need to underpay you, right? Women always like don't, sorry, that poorly phrased. Women generally don't negotiate as much as men and aren't as comfortable negotiating. And when they do, they still ask for less money. So I'm extremely passionate about getting women and minorities to ask for more money. On the logistics side, if you are staying at a company, you are getting raises based on your base salary every year. So not only are you missing out on money your first year, you're going to miss out on money every single year after that. Thankfully, now when you switch jobs, they can't ask how much you used to make. So I think that helps. But if you're investing the money you're making, you are then losing out on money when you are investing and not investing as much as you could. So like if you negotiated $10,000 more in your base salary your first year, you stay there for 5 years, maybe that it results in another increase of $5,000. That's compounded because the yearly increase and the money you're not investing.
Yep.
So logistics wise, there's lots of reasons.
Yeah.
One thing I don't think people talk about it enough with new grads, because I think a lot of times we're made to think that like we don't have value and we don't have experience. And so these companies are quote unquote taking a chance on us. They are like going out on a limb, or like, we're lucky to just have a job. And in this economy, sure, it's good to practice gratitude. It's extremely good to be thankful that someone could be taking a chance on you, or thankful that you have that opportunity.
Yep.
That doesn't mean you need to undervalue yourself.
What are ways that people that are coming out of college, new grads, can negotiate your salary? What ways have you seen success and then been successful as well with that?
Yeah, two key things. I think having competing offers always helps. It's like it's down to it and you're the top candidate, being like, I really want to choose you, but this other company like offered me $70,000 and the first offer was like, say, 65. I think that always works, because you have like this proof point of like, and they're like, okay, well, we need to match that. So I think that's always been something that's worked. So I would say if you're actively interviewing, interview for a good amount of jobs so you can get those offers. It'll give you experience and practice interviewing, but it'll also potentially give you a competing offer. Second thing is, whenever we talk about negotiating, especially out of school, I think it's really key to set yourself up for success, because you're always going to have more luck negotiating. Like I negotiated over $30,000 more increase in my first job. And that was because, yeah, so that was because I was their top candidate. And I made myself their top candidate for multiple reasons. Like you can't do this with every job, but I had experience. So I found ways to find experience in what I wanted to do in college. This is not just internships, but like side projects. I was a product manager. So through the entrepreneurship program, I decided I wanted to start an app, and it didn't end up going anywhere, but I spent a year developing this application, which gave me experience developing a product, prioritizing features. It gave me experience with designing UX for it. I even learned to code to build like an MVP, which you don't have to do. I very much wanted to do this.
Awesome.
But that gave me experience. That's the whole reason they even interviewed me to begin with. So I do think experience is important. I think you can, but like if you're just like switched majors your last year and you really want to go into this industry, you can find other ways. If you're in social media, start a social media account for yourself. Go to like a really cool small business that you love and offer to help them. Offer to help like take content for them. This is advice I have for like, I give out frequently for people who like want to go into content in UGC, is always like, how do I start working with brands? Pick up items in your home that you love and start making content. And then you have a sample portfolio of work to not only send to that brand, but similar to brands, right? Like create your own experience if nobody will give it to you. That's huge. So tying back into negotiation, I think that when you are I hate to use the word qualified, but when you have the experience that they're looking for, the most you can align yourself to be someone they want, the more like power you'll have in that negotiation, because they don't want to go to the site. Like also realize that there's these lengthy interview processes. I had the opportunity to interview and like hire people for my team last year. And like, I'm doing a full-time job. Bigger companies will have recruiters who help too, but I was a hiring manager and like, I was tired. Like, I don't want to sit here. And like, after we decide and we get approval on the candidate, I don't really want to go to the second candidate or the third candidate. So like, if you're asking for especially a smaller amount, like those are pretty easy to approve. They all have ranges.
I mean, speaking from the other, like I went through 5 rounds of interviews, just one company. And it's crazy, but it was great because I got to meet everybody and I got to come in the front door as soon as I started and be like, have a little bit of the lay of the land, but it's exhausting. Like it is really tiring going through the interview process.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is just because everyone wants to have a hand in the interviewing process and know these people. And I think a lot of companies have trouble like giving control to one person, especially as companies get bigger, which is valid to some extent. But yeah, it's exhausting on the candidate side. Also, I don't think enough people talk about negotiating via email. As someone with anxiety, Like when they call me and give me an offer, I don't want to negotiate right then and there. My head is not in the place of I'm going to ask for more money. My head is like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And like, I want to accept it right now. So negotiating via email was like probably the best thing I ever did.
It's exhausting. It's like anxiety written almost in terms of just the emotional roller coaster you're going through.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I want to talk about your TikTok just for a minute, just because I love the content that you produce. I love your platform, but I also love the entrepreneurial journey that you take everybody through, answering questions, things like that. Starting, you've talked a little bit about, just creating your own social media profiles, but what made you decide this is what I was going to talk about on TikTok? This is what I wanted my platform to be.
Yeah. I don't know. There's been a lot of pivots.
Yeah.
So I started actually creating reels on Instagram like
Okay.
circa summer 2020.
Okay.
It's like for fun. And then one of my friends had built like a following of, I think at that time it was just like 70,000 just, I mean, that's more than I am now. It was like 70,000 on TikTok and like, like 12,000 on YouTube. And she's like, you should be posting these to TikTok. And one day, like, she just finally got me to do it. And
Yeah.
I started. And at first it was just like anything, right? Like we all start, and I didn't start and go in and be like, I'm going to post business tips every single day on X, Y, and Z topics. Like I just started creating and like posting my thoughts on the internet. And at first I talked about small business tips. So for the first almost year of content, I was posting marketing and business tips for first time small business owners, because that's what I had done when I was doing my practicum in college. That's what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
Like I think that starting a business of any sort, whether that's freelancing or a small business, has such a big power to change people's lives. Super
Yeah.
passionate about it.
Yep.
So that's what I was doing. Then one day someone asked about my full-time job when I was a product manager, and it was very, I don't want to say rare, but like there's not many. I was a 21-year-old girl being a product manager in tech. Like that's like not very common if you know anything about product
Yes.
management.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started talking about that, and I was like, and like, yeah, so it was a little crazy. That's when I like posted a bunch of like salary transparency. Like at one point, I posted my entire total compensation for my job on like, just some Harry Styles audio. I pinned it to the top of my profile, and even as I was interviewing, I had pinned to the top of my TikTok profile my entire compensation history. I gave zero care.
I love that.
And like no one had a problem with it. And like if they did, what were they trying to hide? Like why don't you want me to be transparent? No, but it didn't even get brought up actually until after I was hired for my next role.
Okay.
Started getting on content on TikTok. And then when I started becoming a full-time business owner, I was like, okay, like what do I do now? Like what
Yeah.
content?
Yeah.
Because like posting about corporate, whenever I was posting about corporate, it was always like how to negotiate your salary and ask for more money. And it was about like navigating that career and like, I don't know, maximizing the value early on.
Yep.
So it wasn't even like corporate content, but now I post a lot about like going from corporate into freelance
Yeah.
and building a business and like tools I'm finding helpful.
Yeah.
Different ways to get new clients that I'm finding helpful, what my days look like. So that's a lot of what my content is now. And it's been really weird navigating. The biggest shift for me, I think, was going from posting in a full-time job to like posting now.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest thing I've like overthunk a
Yeah.
lot.
It's hard to find that balance too. Like I'm a very much a written person still. So I have a planner and I'm like, I've got a sticky note on each day that tells me exactly like my brand,
Yeah.
what needs to be done for the day. And I'm like, oh my God, I find myself either very early in the morning or later at night. I like, cause the middle of the day is full-time job. So it is very hard, but, I think everybody's done like 5 pivots on TikTok just because that's the changing of the landscape of things. But I love that you've covered all of your bases, and like, I bet if you go back, you can truly see the change in yourself and your career and everything, which is so cool to see.
You can see the change, and like I'll see some of my old videos, and like you can see how stressed I was at certain times. You can see my tone change, like things I couldn't see during that time. When I go back and look at my old content are so like prevalent to me. Like I go back and I'm like, wow, like she was so stressed out.
Well, and I'm sure much like if you had just scrolled through my TikTok and picked a random one, I was like, I could probably tell you what was going on in life at that point. Much like yourself, like you know what was happening at that time in your career, in your life, whatever it may be. You know what was happening, and I'm sure all of us can do it just because we remember those moments, even if it's silly to say it's on TikTok, but we remember those things happening. We remember posting these things.
Yeah, TikTok has a feature now where it shows you your video from like 1 year ago,
Yeah.
sort of like Instagram archives. So it's been interesting, like rewatching my videos because a year ago is when I switched from product back to marketing. So like all my videos about the new role and about that switch were popping up, and I'm like, oh, because
I
no idea
mine,
what's in store for her.
mine have come up and I'm like, oh my God, please stop the dancing videos. I'm like, never again. We don't need to do the dances ever again.
You know what? I love a good little trend video. They're so easy and fun. I
Yes.
I feel like we might be opposites in this way. I don't think I've ever scripted a TikTok. I'm like not a written person. Like I
I
okay,
You ask me to write a script and I will have no idea what to do for you.
I can do them for clients sometimes, but like doing them for myself, it just feels weird and authentic when I read it out loud. So like I prefer to write like topics
Yeah.
and like, okay, if I need to re-record without saying this little bit, okay. Yeah. Speaking of free balling, do we want to talk about threads?
Yes. Yes. Let's talk about this in the last 48 hours, the platform that's gained 2 million or however many million followers.
30 million downloads, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, incredible. I mean, as a social platform today where our whole world is wrapped up in social media, I have never seen something like this happen since TikTok has come in.
TikTok didn't even gain users this
Yeah,
fast. TikTok blew up over like, I think it was 2021 probably was when it was the highest like growth.
yeah,
But there's a comparison somewhere that was like they did it in 24 hours, what other apps took like Chat GPT took, I think 1 or 2 weeks to get.
yeah,
TikTok before took a lot longer. And
yeah.
I think it kind of speaks to how smart the integration with Instagram was, in my opinion. Like
Smart.
from product perspective,
Yes.
how seamless that integration was for getting people to download it and then auto follow the same followers.
And
I'm
bring in your own platform. Like I didn't have to create a username, a profile, anything. I said,
bio, you can import your photo, you can import
yeah.
your bio.
I said sync and it did it. You know what I mean? Like how freaking easy is that?
Yeah, I shout out to whatever product manager was in charge of that because so good.
Brilliant. What will be interesting now though is to see where they go from it, but also is Twitter going to have a response to this in some way?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because from my perspective, everyone's like, well, it can't compete with Twitter unless it has X, Y, and Z, or until it has X, Y, and Z. And some of those are very valid, like feature requests,
Yep.
and already commented on a lot of those. But I also think there's a lot of people who just didn't want to be on Twitter anymore, right? Like, not even just like controversy or everything happening with Twitter. Like, I just never liked the platform and the culture of the platform. I felt it hard to like navigate as like some of the brands I was working with. And so I think that this offers an alternative. Like if you want to do short form text content on a large platform that's reaching an audience, you don't have to do Twitter. Um, but I do think it'll compete. I'm just interested to see like how many people like stay on Twitter and whether it's just two different options and whether brands
Yeah.
use both or pick one.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really cool with a new platform to kind of see how the culture of the platform
Yep.
grows, evolves, and shifts.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see that.
To that point, I think that's where you'll see a lot of people leave Twitter is the culture because I think the culture changed significantly and I think that we see a lot of the time during political seasons there's a lot of politics that's thrown at us. People use Twitter in that way, and it's sometimes like I'll stop going on Twitter for that time period because I'm like I just don't care to see that stuff or have it shoved in my face. Um, so I think the culture change will be interesting.
Yeah, I think you can actually limit what type of content you see too. So if there's a topic, I know there was a lot going around like weight loss and diet culture. Like a lot of people don't want to see ads and content around that. And you can actually like block those keywords sort of in content
Yeah.
that's being served to you in ads. So I think that's really helpful too. If
Yep.
there's a type of content that is going to limit your use of a platform or make you not enjoy using it, you can do that as
I think that's awesome. What a community, like to your point of community, and what a community based new platform to use that like just makes you happy to actually use it and not like, oh, it's another social media platform.
I think this is the first time that people have been like saying good things
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Instagram. Like Masuri, whatever his name is. We know who it is. The
Yeah.
creative person. I him waking up. What I want to know what it was like for him to wake up and have good things
I
said.
know. It must have been a great week for them this week. I mean, that was holiday week and then this dropping. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, he usually gets so much slack. So I feel good. I feel better for him.
My last question for you, Samantha, is just what inspires you?
I think that seeing the opportunities that I get now because of the work I did so early on inspires me a lot to try and like educate and preach and inspire this new generation or even people my age. Because I see that like somehow I figured out what works to an extent, right? And I like grew up a first gen of a single mom, and now I'm sitting here like 24 years old, like run my own company technically too, and was a product manager in tech at 21, made six figures out of college because I listened to the right people and I made a bunch of decisions that worked out. So how do I help more people like me have it work out? Um, so that's like part of the reason I got on TikTok, and like I wasn't monetized on TikTok for the longest time. And I literally just showed up and created videos every single day to try and achieve that goal. So
I've enjoyed getting to follow along on your journey and getting to see all the different things you do with your career.
thank you. Well, thank you so much. This was a great conversation and I enjoyed being here and talking to
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And if you guys do not follow Samantha at all, please go follow her TikTok because it is such a fun place to learn about entrepreneurship and business and all these different things. But Samantha, thank you so much for coming on and talk with me.
Yeah, of course. It's Saturdays with Sam on TikTok. And then for anything marketing related, LinkedIn at Samantha
Yes.
Lenger.
Yeah. And I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.